History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it, said Winston Churchill, tongue firmly in cheek. And the noted historian was well qualified to do so, winning the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953 for his historical writings. As well as a painter, statesman, orator and strategist, Churchill was Britain's most loved Prime Minister, leading his nation through the dark days of World War II. The future leader was born in 1874, the son of a British lord and an American heiress. Elected to Parliament in 1900, he rose quickly through the ranks, dumping the Conservative Party for the Liberals in 1904. He became First Lord of the Admiralty in 1911, but took the blame for the disastrous Gallipoli campaign in 1915 and was demoted. In the 1920s and 30s, he became politically unpopular for his support of Edward VIII during his abdication crisis. He was also fiercely opposed to appeasing the fascist powers. When World War II broke out, Churchill was again appointed First Lord of the Admiralty, and in May 1940 took over as Prime Minister from Neville Chamberlain. Churchill won the British people's admiration for his staunchness in the face of Nazi aggression during Britain's darkest hour. Thousands of Londoners died in the Blitz as wave after wave of German bombers dumped their loads. But Churchill refused to surrender, and the Allied pilots ultimately won the Battle of Britain. Churchill was also assiduous in courting the Americans, who were reluctant to enter the war against Germany. In August 1941, he and President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an agreement of their war aims on the USS Augusta off the coast of Newfoundland. The Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor in December 1941 saw the Americans enter the war with a vengeance. The Second Battle of El Alamein in late 1942 turned the tide of war in North Africa towards the Allies. Churchill's instructions to General Montgomery and the Eighth Army were to sweep Rommel out of Africa. Monty and his men carried out these instructions to the letter and successfully defeated Field Marshal Rommel and the German army. Churchill travelled to Tripoli to congratulate his men and join in the jubilation. Before Alamein, we never had a victory, he said. After Alamein, we never had a defeat. Churchill returned home more a hero than ever. Germany's invasion of Russia brought Stalin into the Allied fold. Although Churchill hated the communists, he forged a working relationship with Stalin and served as an intermediary between the Americans and the Soviets. The three Allied leaders met at Tehran in 1943, one of three major conferences where the post-war order was mapped out. Stalin was presented with the sword of Stalingrad as a mark of admiration for the heroic actions of the Red Army. More than 1 million men died defending the city. Churchill's triumphant leadership of Britain against the Nazis gave his country a much greater role in peace negotiations than would otherwise have been the case. The three leaders met at Yalta in February 1945, but Roosevelt's death in April of that year meant President Harry Truman represented the United States at the Potsdam Conference in July. The Americans ignored Churchill's concerns about potential communist expansion in Europe after the war, and the Soviets were handed Poland and part of Berlin. Churchill's assessment of Soviet hegemony, based on his deep knowledge of history, turned out to be more astute. Churchill also suffered setbacks domestically and was shattered when his government fell to Labour at the end of the war. He left politics and concentrated on writing a 6-volume history of the Second World War and enjoying the fruits of peacetime. Aged 71, it appeared that his glorious political career